But
That
I'm
would
in
be
this
an
weird
upset. The
spot.
Seahawks are better.
I'm in this weird spot
Yeah.
because I can never cheer against the Vikings, but I wouldn't mind seeing us get the 8th pick overall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What has to happen for you to get the 8th pick overall then?
So
Just loot.
Right here. Need the Jets to win, the Falcons to win, the Bears to win, the Raiders to win, and the Vikings to lose. But they could land anywhere between 12 and 8, depending on who wins and loses those games.
Yeah. Yeah, if just 2 of those teams win, then you still get the 10th pick, for example.
Right.
Which
But they
isn't a
can
bad
move
spot
up
to
to
be.
8th, and it makes it easier to get a package together to move up to 2 or 3 if that's what you want to do, because when you're sitting at like 16, it makes it a lot harder to get a team, but a team will drop back in the top 10 if they're willing to trade out. So
Yeah,
maybe
that
you can
NFC
get up to 3. So let's say the Bears decide to fucking trade out of there and Caleb Williams goes first. So now if you're Washington, do you take a quarterback or do you take like Marvin Harrison Jr., like something like that? So then New England's at 3. They need a quarterback. So I don't know. Will they take best player available or would they take a quarterback? I think it depends if Bill Belichick's there because he's not really one to take a quarterback high. So who knows with that. Cardinals are not taking a quarterback. So are they willing to trade out or do they want a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. or somebody else?
That's exactly who they need.
Because if you look at it, this is just me personally, the Bears, Commanders, New England, the Giants, the well, maybe not the Jets because of what's going on with Rodgers, and the Falcons are all in the top 9, and the Raiders top 11. They all need quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, chances are if you're there, then you need quarterbacks. I have a weird feeling that the Bears are going to trade out of that pick and
I hope so.
leverage it for more picks.
Pray. Stick with Justin Fields forever.
Yeah, I feel like they might with the noise coming out of Chicago, and Chicago has quite a weak ownership.
They'll never make it to the playoffs with Justin Fields.
Yeah, I agree with you. He can't win from like Justin Fields looks decent when everything goes right. But he only looks decent when everything goes right, and he looks terrible when anything goes wrong. Like, I still think there's a place for Justin Fields in the NFL. Like, he isn't
receiver,
the 33rd worst running back, tight end. That's where all former quarterbacks end up. No, I personally think Justin Fields in Atlanta would be an interesting move and that kind of thing.
They're saying it would
I
take
think the Bears
a second or a third to get Fields if you traded for him.
Yeah, I think. Do you know what? Like a second and a third, or a second or a third.
See, I think a second or a third is what they're saying. They think you could get him for. Yeah. I think a third's too much for him, but okay.
I think it's worth a punt if you're certain teams.
You might as well just sign Josh Dobbs.
Yeah, do them both. They'll both be like if you manage to get Justin Fields, you'll be able to get Josh Dobbs on the free agency wire as well. But I have a weird feeling that because Bears Sport Radio, like I listened to a few. It's been cold in Riga, man, so I've had a lot of time in the house. But I listened to some YouTuber stuff from like Chicago Bears radio presenters talking about Justin Fields as if he's amazing. And I weirdly think the Bears ownership listened to that kind of stuff. Like I think the Bears ownership is quite weak. And that's a sign of really poor ownership if you're letting the media decide who your quarterback's going to be. Especially if it's
fire everyone.
Yeah, I think they should fire everyone. Like, if you're going to do this, you just need to get rid of everybody. But if they do want to keep Justin Fields, you owe it to Justin Fields to get him a better offensive system around him than whatever Matt Eberflus is putting down.
When did Peter King become one of the dumbest people in football prognosticating ever?
Yeah, since he started talking to Florio.
Because he just did a whole thing on how the Bears have to keep Justin Fields. And I'm like, I fucking pray. Because you can get so much for the first pick. That doesn't do you any good if you don't have a quarterback.
Yeah, he can't play from behind. What'll be an interesting move is if they really leverage all these picks, like they really, really go for this, right? Interesting move. Interesting move for the Patriots as well. You trade Fields for a second or a third or whatever you can get for him. You get rid of Fields. You also trade out of the number 1 pick. Like you trade out. You then call Russell Wilson and get Russell Wilson as your bridge quarterback. And then you take Bo Nix at the end of the first or wherever you've ended up in the first round. Because there are so many quarterbacks. You can have Penix, you can have Nix at some point in the first round.
Yeah, Vegas had me pissed off this week because betting lines has the number 1 place for Russell Wilson to land is Minnesota. I think don't ever say that again to me.
Yeah, a lot of chat coming out of New England that he's going to be there. If Bill Belichick is there next year, Russell Wilson will be there next year.
Well, speaking of the quarterbacks, so the talking heads right now have it Caleb Williams, Jalen Daniels, some may, but most of them now are going to Jalen Daniels, and Drake May being the only guaranteed first rounders is what I'm seeing. And some of them have J.J. McCarthy sneaking into the first round, which is wild to me because they're still talking Bo Nix and Penix in the second round to third. But I'm like, Penix is going to be one of those guys who sneaks up the draft board, especially after the way he played in the playoff game. And now he's going to the national championship against Michigan, unless he just shits the bed against Michigan. But I do get that a lot of them don't have Penix in the first round because when he was at Indiana, he did tear up his ACL twice.
Yeah, and his age, like Penix is a little older, but actually, I don't understand why that's such a problem.
Let me find this quick. It's wild.
There's a few. Did you send me this? There's a few quarterbacks who are Penix is older than in the NFL right now, right?
But Joe Burrow quarterbacks coming out this year are older. That was the thing. Like every one of them.
Yeah. Apart from Williams, who is 22, and Drake May, who's 22 as well. But it's the COVID extension years, isn't it?
Here it is. So,
yeah.
Bo Nix, 24. Penix, 24. Jaden Daniels, 23. Williams, 22. Drake May, 22. NFL starting quarterbacks next season. Richardson, 22. Stroud, 22. Bryce Young, 23. Trevor Lawrence, 24. Justin Fields, 25.
Yeah, I think CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson came out last year because it was like a lower level quarterback class.
Trevor Lawrence feels like he's been in the league way too long to only be 24.
Yeah, so Trevor Lawrence is the same age as Penix, right?
Yep.
Which is fascinating.
Bo Nix, too.
To me. 24. Bo Nix as well. Yeah, Penix feels older than Bo Nix, weirdly. I know he's not, but he just feels older. But I don't think that's a bad thing in the NFL. Like guys coming out a bit older, like terrible for running backs. If we can, let's see if we can get running backs at 19, 20, you know? Terrible for running backs. But everybody else, I'm a bit like, especially quarterbacks, that extra bit of development, that extra bit of age gives them the skills that they need when they get to the pros to deal with coming up to the pros, being the face of the organization. Like I'm a totally different guy between the age of 22 and 24 in my responsibilities and the way that I am and those kind of things.
They're playing I really do too. Like they're getting into their late 30s and to 40 now in the quarterbacks, so they play longer too.
Yeah, so the argument of I'm missing out on money if I don't go because my career will end, and it's like, no, you're going to make money because you're not dealing with all of the shit at 22. That is like what Bryce Young has to deal with going into a shitty organization where the losses aren't necessarily really your fault, but the media are all over you. Doing that at 22 and doing that at 24 are two different things.
So I read something that the estimated NIL right now for Caleb Williams this year is that he made $8 million.
Yeah. How much is the rookie deal for the first round pick? Do you know?
They get like 30 guaranteed over 4 years, 30 something.
Do you reckon Caleb Williams is the first round pick if he comes out next year?
Like
not this year coming, like the year after.
Probably, I don't even think he should be the first overall pick this year.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think I want to know how much of it is poor USC O-line, because I have looked and I'm not sure how much of it is that, but it was worse the year before.
If you look at him, like he's at USC with all these amazing athletes, like some of the best receivers and he tears up bad defenses. But as soon as they play a good defense, he shits the bed. And I'm like, I'm not saying the kid can't play. I'm just saying I don't think that he's better than Jayden Daniels. And the fact that they're gonna it's already everybody's like, lock it up, he's the first overall pick. I'm like, that's wild. It's wild that they just think that, because to me, it's just me, Jayden Daniels is a more accurate Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I was wrong on Young last year, because I was too into like the crazy playmaking skills that you have outside of the pocket. What makes you the best in the NFL?
In a bad situation too.
I know he's in a really bad situation, but CJ Stroud, that situation at Houston turned out to be a good situation, but CJ Stroud is playing way better than him right now.
He is, but look at that offensive line too. The Texans have a top offensive line. They have weapons and they have a defense. Like Bryce Young is just getting fucking murdered. And he has
exactly. Right. Yeah, he's getting absolutely annihilated. And also there's the problem of like, he's quite a little guy, so he's going to need more help in the offensive line. If the Panthers have completely leveraged their future, but the Panthers need to hit free agency hard for offensive linemen to keep their future alive. Like all of their draft picks are behind this offensive line.
We traded Ezra Cleveland, who was a starting left guard, to the Jags for a 6. Why weren't the Panthers on the phone with us?
Yeah.
Because we would have gave it to the Panthers for a 6 before the Jags, just because the Panthers have the worst. So that would have been the first pick in the 6th round. You know, like you could have used the same round and got the same guy, because if you're the Vikings, you're definitely going to give it to the worst team because the draft pick's going to be better.
Yeah, Lyle Collins, who's started at left guard and right tackle for the Cowboys and the Bengals until he blew his ACL out.
There's 2 guys you could have upgraded with right there without having to use a draft pick.
Because you could have, like, obviously Collins probably wants to come to the Cowboys over the Panthers, but do you not think if you just pushed a big enough thing of money, which they have the cap space now, the Panthers, like if you pushed a big enough thing of money in front of him, that would be fine.
And in his world, you could still do that next year because he's just a practice squad guy. So that means that he doesn't have a long-term deal. So he's going to hit the free agency market after this run with the Cowboys, and maybe you come to him and just be like, here's some more money than anybody else's, because you're going to have to overpay for some of these people. But the good thing about that is you're got a bunch of people on rookie deals or young players still on their rookie deal. You can overpay some guys for the next couple of years until you get better.
Yeah, they also are in a really lucky position where Young has got this crazy connection with Adam Thielen, where Adam Thielen is still making the out. So it's not like, like you lost DJ Moore in the trade. That is really not helpful, like when you're trying to get this young quarterback going. But Adam Thielen has kind of stepped into that role. So at least you have a trusted wide receiver. And then you have guys like Mingo and stuff like that. So there is a way forward for the Panthers. But I was, at this point, I'm currently wrong, because what now is more valued seems to be the ability to play within the system. In USC, Caleb Williams has kind of become the system, and that's not the way that it should work in the NFL. It's something that we've already said about Josh Allen in this podcast, something that's happening with Patrick Mahomes. Dak Prescott looks awful when he gets out of timing with the system and all of those kind of things. You get guys like Brock Purdy who run the system so perfectly. So if you get a guy like Jayden Daniels with his athletic ability, but also his ability to be accurate and play within the system, you get a guy like Bo Nix who runs that Oregon system so well. You get a guy like Penix who is like, you used the word assassin when you were watching the game the other day. Like, he picks people off. Like, Caleb Williams is probably more gifted than all of those guys single-handedly.
Penix is
your quarterback doesn't
most accurate quarterback in the draft, though. Penix is the most accurate quarterback in the draft.
Yeah, Caleb Williams is probably more gifted than all of them, but you don't win in the NFL just through your quarterback alone.
I
you
get
can't
the
play
argument,
superhero all the time.
and I'm just being this guy right now, and I get it, but I still think Jaden Daniels is more talented than Caleb Williams.
All right. I need to go watch more Jaden Daniels tape, man, because like I don't have the.
He's super accurate. He reads defenses really fast, and that fucking guy is the most athletic guy in the draft this year.
Yeah, yeah.
And he didn't even play in the bowl game, so like I get it, but it starts to drive me nuts when. So Wisconsin played LSU in the bowl, and I wouldn't play either if I'm going to the NFL. But so let's just get rid of those stupid bowl games since we're expanding the playoffs next year to 12, because anybody who doesn't make the playoffs, they're not playing in the bowl game if they're going to the NFL.
Yeah, you can call them the bowl game, like if you want to. Like you can call the college playoff games, you can call them the same names because I understand the traditions and stuff.
The Rose Bowl was Michigan versus Alabama the other day.
Alabama, and the Sugar Bowl was Washington versus Oregon, so you can still call them bowl games.
And I think the Orange Bowl is the championship, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, you can still call them whatever the hell you want to. I think that there's a few interesting teams for me. So Tennessee, what are they doing at quarterback? Are they staying with Will Levis? If so, trade out of the 7. Like, I'd stay with Will Levis as well. Like, I think they'll stay with Will Levis. But trade out of the 7.
Do you? And I normally agree with you. And the only reason I push back this year is because what if 3 or 4 quarterbacks go in that top 5? Then that pushes back all that talent to you at 7.
All those lovely wide receiver talents.
And the guys, and you can't tell me that on everybody's big board that the quarterbacks are the best players. They're not. They're just the most important. So people put them above other people. So you could get a stud corner or a stud wide receiver, or you know what I mean? I know they were going to announce it today. I'd like to see what Minnesota is going to do with Jaren Hall this week because they haven't announced the starting quarterback yet. Okay, Nick Mullins. See, that's stupid to me. Why are you starting Nick Mullins in the final game? Because I would have sat Hall the whole year. But at this point, why don't you get the kid some experience? Because the chances of going to the playoffs is you got to win and have 3 teams lose. Maybe see what Jaren Hall has. And I've always said Jaren Hall is accurate. Can he play in the NFL? I don't know. But Puka Nacua sure thinks that Jaren Hall was a pretty good quarterback because he got him to the NFL. So
can Jaren Hall be accurate enough and run a system well enough to be a backup quarterback in the NFL for the rest of his career? That's what you want to see.
That's not what I want to see. You and living on this backup quarterback thing to me is wild. Like, you need to see if he's a starter. If he's not, then move on. Like, that's every team for me. You have this affinity with backup quarterbacks. Like, Maddie's favorite player on every team is their backup quarterback.
Yeah, I like having a good backup quarterback. The Colts wouldn't be on the verge of the playoffs if they didn't have a good backup quarterback.
I'd rather have a good starting quarterback, but okay.
Well, yeah, obviously. But you see if Jaren Hall can play, and then he becomes like just if he's good enough, then there he is, backup quarterback. Let's go get another quarterback, and you go. From
this is the year of the backup quarterback.
You're just been greedy. Yeah. See, there are loads of teams where if they had Joe Flacco, they'd be in the playoffs right now.
20-some backup quarterbacks have started this year.
Yeah, so you better have a good one.
I don't know. Looks like the Steelers might make the playoffs with Mason Rudolph, so I'm not sure how good of one you have to be.
Yeah, they're backup quarterback. They're super backup quarterback. I guess they're starting a backup quarterback in Kenny Pickett as well. Yeah, there's a few other interesting teams that are up here as well, like the Chargers. Like they're a team that you can trade with. I wonder how high you've got to be to get a Penix, because a Penix in Minnesota is perfect to me.
It's wild to me that I just started this, but like Field Yates, fucking Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, none of these guys have Penix going in the first round.
Yeah, PFF are quite high on Penix from what I've seen. So they're stock exchange, and they usually come out quite right at the end, PFF. So they're quite high on Penix. But I wonder how high you've got to be as the Vikings. I wonder how high you've got to be to get Penix. Because imagine having Penix with your wide receiver room, your coaching, and a year to sit behind Kirk Cousins.
My estimation, 7 teams in the top 11 need a quarterback. So 8 in the top 12 right now with the Vikings.
How many good quarterbacks are there? Like,
and Denver's at 14. They need a quarterback. Seattle's at 15. They need a quarterback.
What was the East? What was
Pittsburgh's at 18. They need a quarterback.
Yeah, there's going to be lots of movement, I think, for these quarterbacks. I also think people will be slating Penix and reminding everybody about his injuries going forward to make sure that he falls. Jared Stidham threw for 224 yards.
What was that? Sorry.
Jared Stidham threw for 224 yards. Do Denver need a quarterback? Yeah, of course they do.
Yeah, and do a couple of these teams grab like Russell Wilson or somebody and then feel like they don't have to pick a quarterback up high, right? So in a perfect world, maybe a team like New England does sign Russell Wilson and then they're willing to trade out the third spot. If you're the Vikings at 8, that's not a huge jump. You could get the Patriots to trade with you. And I know it was under Spielman, but the Vikings over the last 8 years have done a lot of draft day trades with the New England Patriots.
How much are you giving up if you're one of those teams sat in 10 to 13 to move up to, say, 3? How much are you giving up there?
Even if I'm at 8 or 10 and I can get up to 3 and get Jaden Daniels, I'm willing to give you 2 to 3 first-round picks.
All right. What if you can get, like, is that for any of the 3 as well, or does it have to be for Jaden Daniels there?
I don't think any of the rest of them are worth giving up that much in the draft. I mean, maybe Caleb Williams, but I don't think that that's even a possibility. I think you got to go to 1 to get him. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, especially if it's
and the Bears would never trade with the Vikings for the first overall pick. So
yeah, that's true. It also means you can stay like kind of where you are for. It sounds like you can stay where you are for Penix or Bo Nix, but I don't think
okay with taking Penix. I would be okay taking Penix in the top 10, but it doesn't seem like the talking heads right now are there yet.
Yeah, well, we'll wait for them to get there.
And that's what's always so wild to me, because I judge these guys off of me watching them, right? And then I hear the people who get paid to do this, and I'm so far different than them sometimes. I'm like, how the fuck are we all seeing this so wildly different? And then NFL teams, people assume right away the NFL teams feel the same way that Mel Kiper and all them do, but they don't. And that's why we see shit. And then people are so shocked because they're like, how the fuck could they have taken that person? And it's like, well, they're scouts.
Yeah, exactly. And there's one guy who compiles a list. I think he's on Good Morning Football or was for a while, of his like insider knowledge of what the teams will do. So it's not like Mel Kiper and that. They're not. They're kind of doing like what they think the teams should do and who they would take. But then there's there's like one other guy specifically. I can't remember his name.
Mel Kiper will say he's 8th on my big board, but I have him at 4 because I hear from teams that they love him.
Yeah, like Mel Kiper does like a weird hybrid, but then there's another guy who like just only does what he hears from the teams, like entirely, which is like an interesting one if you're a betting person, for example.
And I was so mad.
We do ours what we would.
I was so mad to hear Field Yates praising Jaden Daniels. I'm like, shut up, just shut up. Yeah, because he thinks he's the second bet, or that he should be the second quarterback taken. And I'm like, shut up, dude. Shut up. Like, Drake May is the only thing that should come out your mouth at number 2. Like, shut up. I don't want Drake May. I'm not sold on him.
Russell Wilson to the Patriots. Vikings trade up to 3. to get Jaden Daniels.
I want Jaden Daniels or Penix. That's who I want. But that's
you still playing Kirk Cousins for a whole year and sitting Jaden Daniels behind him, right? 2 years.
If it's me, I signed Kirk to a 2-year contract. I let him play it out, let him retire a Viking, and then start.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. That sounds good to me.
You get 2 years to learn that Kevin O'Connell system, right? And even the players are saying, like, we learned so much from in the second year that he didn't even put on us in the first year because we're just trying to learn the calls and the plays and like everything like that. So I'm like, give him 2 years in that system, let Kirk play. And then if Kirk gets injured, which we didn't think would happen until it happened, right? Then you play him earlier. But other than that, just sit him for 2 years and let him learn how to play quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah. And then Jaden Daniels gets to do, then Kevin O'Connell gets to sit there and just think up a crazy athletic plays to do with Jaden Daniels when he first comes into the offense. Just gets to get all giddy and excited with his playbook, writing stuff up for Jaden Daniels for 2 whole years. Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, and then if everything goes the way it's expected, you still got Justin Jefferson for 4 or 5 more years under contract too, with his extension that's coming.
Yeah, and Addison, who looks awesome, and Jaden Daniels hasn't really played yet on his rookie deal.
Right.
So you can leverage that when you go into the negotiations in the 3rd, 4th, 5th year, whenever you want to do it.
And I feel like Kirk's he already said he'd take a hometown deal to stay. But nobody ever knows how big of a deal are you willing to take, but I feel like the injury also will make him cost less going into next year.
Yeah. There's also the fact of like, who else is going to go to Minnesota and be able to get Kirk away from Minnesota? That's the other.
Right, because he has made it clear that he wants to retire there. So that makes a big deal too.
Yeah, how much do you have to give and how much are you willing to give to get Kirk out of Minnesota?
He'll be a free agent.
Who's doing that for only a couple of years as well? Like, it's an interesting...
It's kind of like I said with Dalvin Cook. Leaving could end up biting you in the ass. If you're Kirk, do you want to be known as the guy who played for 3 teams instead of 2 because it's different? And also, do you want to learn a whole new system? Do you want to leave a team that has an offensive line that stepped up and looked way better this year than it has in years past? Plus, you have JJ, you have Jordan Addison, and you have TJ Hawkinson all sitting there as weapons, and you're 35 going on 36. Do you really want to go to another team? So I really hope they figure something out. I think they will. Kwesi kills me. I get what he's doing, and I'm not mad about it, but he kills me because he waits so long to get these deals done.
Yeah, it's what the Cowboys did, and it bit them in the ass with Dak's contract. So hopefully it doesn't bite you in the ass with JJ's.
I think Kwesi's willing to walk away from Kirk. I don't think Jerry was willing to walk away from Dak.
Oh, no.
Made that very strange, right? Like, so
yeah.
That made that even more strange because you're Jerry and you're going to keep him no matter what. You should have got him paid a year earlier.
Yeah.
And Dak was young, trying to get to, but from everything I've read, Justin Jefferson and the Vikings had a deal worked out, and then Bosa got his deal, which reset the market, which made JJ want more than him, which put the contract on hold.
Yeah, well, JJ, you see, JJ's worth it though. Like, JJ's worth it, but now it's weird.
Pay him already. Just give him the fucking contract. Why are we waiting? That's the shit.
Yeah.
Here's something wild though. If you could trade JJ, say, to the Commanders for number 2 to get your franchise quarterback, do you do it?
As a Cowboys fan, no, I don't want to see JJ in the NFC.
Okay, but let's say it's somebody else at number 2, right? Like,
no. If it was anybody, if I was the Vikings, would I trade JJ for the franchise quarterback?
Because you already got Addison, you got Hawkinson, you now you're gonna not have to pay JJ that huge contract, and you got a rookie quarterback coming in with a ton of cap room. I say no, but I do believe it's a legitimate question.
It's a legitimate question that if you're doing your due diligence and you're a good GM, you should be asking yourself. For me, it's no. Largely based on I'm also going to have to give up something with that. I don't think they're going to give it up straight out because the Commanders are in desperate need.
No, I'm just saying if you could, because the argument is you could trade JJ for 3 first-round picks. It's in the media. So that's usually what it takes to move up. So I'm just arguing the weird argument. If a team hypothetically would do it, I would only do it if I knew that I was picking at 8 and why is his name slipping me, but I could grab that fucking wide receiver out of Washington too to replace him.
Oh, yeah.
It starts with an O, or it sounds like it starts with an O, but it doesn't. I forget, but whatever. If I could get one of those top receivers too, maybe I think about it, but it's hard to give up the best player at a certain position.
Yeah, it's difficult as well because you've got Kirk Cousins for 2 more years, so you don't know what's the quarterback class going to look like in 2 years' time. As well, there's also the fact that it looks like
if you don't get one of those guys, do you wait until the 4th and 5th round and take a guy like Rattler and see what you can do with him?
See what you can do with Rattler, but you're also sitting. If you're sitting at 10, if you're sitting at 15, you can get. If you're sitting between 10 and 15, you can. It seems like you can get JJ McCarthy, who I wouldn't take that high.
Me either.
Bo Nix, who I'd think about taking that high. And Penix, who I'd take that high in a heartbeat.
That scares me is that he fell off this year compared to last year. Bo Nix.
Yeah, definitely. Odunze is the wide receiver for the Washington Huskies. I wouldn't do it
unless somehow I could come up with my quarterback and Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm not doing it.
Or Odunze as you
if
said.
I could come up with like say Jaden Daniels and Marvin Harrison Jr. out of that, then I do it. Like if I feel like I could get that in the draft, but no.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. It's not worth the. It's also less risk because you have Kirk Cousins. But imagine Jaden Daniels somehow is a bust, and then JJ is the best wide receiver in the league on a.
If Jaden Daniels is a bust, though, does anything matter after that? Who your receivers are when Kirk's gone?
No, you're right. It depends, like kind of who you're.
Somebody just threw. I don't remember who threw that out there, but it really. I had me like. Granted, I was pretty fucking high, but it really had me thinking about it one night. I was smoking a joint, thinking about would I make that trade?
Yeah, there are a few teams who I would love to be in this draft, and the Vikings are one of them. Like the Vikings have so many chips. Now your defense is solid, and Brian Flores is there. You have so many chips to play with.
Do you remember how I was praising Ivan Pace before the season? Like this undrafted free agent, I've been watching him at camp, is amazing. I am so happy they gave him like that $100,000 as a free agent to come out. Fuck.
Yeah, he killed it.
All because he's 5'10" or 5'9" or whatever. Because he's too short to be a linebacker, which is so wild to me.
Yeah, Klein played eight snaps on defense as well, didn't he?
I think we definitely need another corner.
Yeah, you're a fun. Vikings would be a fun team.
Defense is fun to watch. I'm really excited. I hope we don't lose Brian Flores. I really hope we get him for at least one more year.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's taking Brian Flores in a head coaching role. Maybe the Patriots. Maybe
also if we do get him one more year, I hope the Vikings are smart enough that they have somebody on that defensive staff who is learning under him that will take over for him instead of switching the whole defense and bringing somebody else in.
Yeah, just implement the same like Brian Flores disciple tree thing going on because it is fantastic. It is an awesome defense to watch.
Dude, they blitz more than any other team in the NFL, and we came from Mike Zimmer, who barely ever blitzed.
Yeah, because you have the solidness of Kirk Cousins, because your receiver room is now JJ, Addison, and TJ Hawkinson,
And Powell, I'm pretty sure they're going to keep Powell and let KJ walk.
Powell's great. Because your offensive line is good, not serviceable now. Definitely.
Oddly, from PFF says from week 6 on, they're like in the top 5 offensive lines.
Yeah, like weirdly serviceable for the Vikings offensive line, which feels like we haven't been able to say that for a long time. But you might also be picking in the top 10 of the NFL draft because Kirk Cousins went that. You're like, yeah, that's a great place to be. Like, if you're the Vikings, that's a great
spot. Yeah, if we're not going to the playoffs, we're in the best spot we can fucking be. Because I am so mad, and people can disagree, but I feel like the Vikings would have been a real contender if Kirk would have stayed healthy.
I agree with you. I think Kirk would have been a contender for MVP because the only reasons they lost those games at the start of the year, those weird fumble games where you just hold on to the ball.
Was it 7? There was 11 fumbles in the first 4 games. 11.
Yeah, wild, like a wild thing. So there was all of that. So the Vikings are in a really cool place. If I'm the Chargers, I'm kind of weirdly happy like that I'm sat in 7th because I get to go hire a new coach, restart everything. I've got Justin Herbert. I get to draft wide receivers in this draft. I get Marvin Harrison Jr. or Odunze because I'm drafting at 6 or drafting at 7 in the draft. My defense has got studs on that side of the ball. I just need to get the Chargers defense has looked good since Brandon Staley's gone. Like, I get to now hire somebody completely new, get a culture reset. I'm excited to be the Chargers. The Titans, who are picking at like 7-ish, I'm like, yeah, that's a great place for the Titans to be as well.
2 things. One, rumors are that if the Bears fire their head coach, Jim Harbaugh wants that job. Makes sense. He was a Bear. Otherwise, he wants that Chargers job.
Yeah, he's a culture builder, Jim Harbaugh.
It makes sense, too, because San Diego State, he took them to their best season ever as a coach. Stanford, which is right outside San Francisco, took them to their best season ever. He took the San Francisco 49ers to their best, in a lot of years, right? Changed the culture. Mm-hmm. Then you send him to LA. Just let this dude stay in California. He does well in California with these teams. I think the Chargers with Jim Harbaugh would be a fucking scary team.
Yeah, I think the Bears are in a weirdly good position as well. Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers. The dude's a culture setter, and that's what they need in the Chargers. They need a culture.
All right, I am going to ask you before we leave what position you would. So I'll give you a chance to think. Overall, for your Cowboys, you would want them to pick. But before that, literally think about this: if you had hired Jim Harbaugh at the Bears, you trade out of the first overall pick, right? You trade Justin Fields. And then mid to late first round, you draft J.J. McCarthy to play for Jim Harbaugh in Chicago.
Yeah.
He called him the greatest quarterback in Michigan history, and he played quarterback at Michigan.
So did Tom Brady, right? But obviously Tom Brady.
Yes, but that Drew Henson, Tom Brady thing made that thing fucking weird. But yes.
Yeah.
So Harbaugh really likes this kid. So maybe that's something for the Bears too. You can still trade out, get rid of Fields, and still get your quarterback for the future. And I think Tyler Baggett looks better with Jim Harbaugh as a coach than he does with fucking anything they got going on in. But then maybe Justin Fields needs Harbaugh. This just popped in my head because they're kind of the same player. He did great with Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah, I think if Harbaugh goes to the Bears, I think the Bears become instantly watchable because their defense, since I kind of shit on the Sweat trade a little bit, saying why are you giving away first round picks at this point?
And I'm with you. We were wrong.
We were wrong. Yeah. That was wrong. We were bad.
We were wrong
from us.
Sweat
we were
looks
wrong.
Good on that team.
Sweat has completely changed their defensive line. They can now get pressure.
Do their linebackers not look like better moves now that they put a pass rusher that we were screaming for from the beginning next to them? So I think they kind of got the process right, but in the wrong order, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. the process was wrong, but the outcome was right. It's like if you did all the wrong working out on a maths test and you still came out with the right answer. So you get the points. That's fine.
It makes me wonder, was Poles a little smarter than I gave him credit for? And he was like, there is no great pass rushers right now. Yeah. I am going to go make this linebacking core great. And the second I get a chance to get a pass rusher, they'll see how great my linebackers are.
Yeah. And they're now getting pressure. They look fantastic. Unfortunately for them, it's what might save Eberflus's job. Yeah. Now, like that could be the issue. But if they got rid of, so Jim Harbaugh comes in there. He has this defense that's playing really well now. He's got options at quarterback with what he wants to do. He can make the quarterback position his own, and that's what coaches like. If I'm going to come in and make the decisions, I want to die by my sword. Like I want to make my decision at the end of the day. Like I'll listen to everybody else, but I want to make my decision. So he gets to make the decision on Justin Fields, Caleb Williams, Daniels, trading out and getting JJ McCarthy, which I think would personally be a mistake. But yeah, I think it would be like JJ McCarthy. Do they play in the Big Ten? Yeah, the Big Ten or the Pac-12. Yeah, the Big Ten. If JJ McCarthy did it against the SEC, I would understand, but he's not. So
I get what people say, but people forget that Penn State, Ohio State, Wisconsin, they all have some of the best defenses in the world right now for college football, and they play those guys. I would say outside of the SEC, the Big Ten is the best division, the second best division. Yeah. The only thing is, I watch a lot of Big Ten games, and I am really big on accuracy. McCarthy, JJ's pretty accurate. I just don't like. It's an eye thing because I'm not a coordinator. I don't feel like he reads the defense particularly well, which is what scares me about him. But maybe he's one of those guys because we've seen it with other quarterbacks that fit in the NFL better than they fit in college. Because he is a pocket passer who can move around, that kind of thing. Maybe he is because they run different schemes, and the offensive talent is so much better in the NFL that maybe he is a better quarterback with better receivers, better running. You know what I mean? I'm torn though because I want Michigan to win the national championship because it would be huge for the Big Ten, and as a Wisconsin fan, I'd love that for the Big Ten. But you know me, I'm a very big Penix fan. Very big Penix fan. And I really want to see this kid do well, no matter where he ends up. I want him to end up in Minnesota, him or Jaden Daniels. But I want to see both those dudes do well, no matter where they land.
Yeah. Oh, what if Penix ends up in Seattle? Washington to Washington.
That would be really good for Seattle, and it would make
that would be really good for Seattle.
That would kind of make me sad because that's one of the few teams So the Eagles, the Redskins, and the Seahawks outside of the North are the three NFC teams I hate the absolute most. I hate Washington because they beat us in the NFC Championship game when I was a teenager. I hate the Eagles because they beat us and stopped us from going to the Super Bowl in our home stadium. And I hate the Seahawks because they always sign our fucking players that we cut. Fucking hate them for that. I always call them Minnesota West.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
West. That's the
very similar, actually, quite a similarly put together team in some ways.
Yeah, yeah. Especially under Zimmer and Pete Carroll, both defensive coaches, like they were very similar.
Yeah. My issue with McCarthy takes me back to the Michigan against TCU game last year, where he was outplayed by Duggan. Like Duggan looked way better than him in that game. Like just from eye test, I was like, yeah, Duggan is better than McCarthy. And I'm sat there I can't not see that, I guess, is what I think. Like, I get you. If he goes to a good spot and is in a good system, like, great. But they're not the quarterbacks that you take at the end of the first round.
They're rating him above Penix, which is wild to me.
It's crazy. That's
and maybe that changes by closer the draft comes because you know how many times if you go look at Field Yates, who I like, even though that's not his real name. If you go look at Field Yates's mocks from one to the one before the draft, they are so completely different. why am I forgetting his name from NFL Network? Big fan. Daniel Jeremiah. Big fan of him too. Can't believe he is not a GM. That blows me away. He is so smart. His change so much too before they get there. I get that because they make a big board and then they start changing it compared to what they're hearing in the NFL. But this JJ McCarthy being so high, before I heard them talk about that, I would have never put him in the first round. And now I'm starting to feel like this kid's going to go in the first round with everything I'm reading. And just for anybody who didn't know, his name is Andrew Barry in real life, Phil Yates. So he changed it, Field Yates. He changed his name so he didn't steal the other Andrew Barry's name from the NFL reporters coming in.
JJ McCarthy to me could end up like Sam Howell in the draft, where there's all this talk of like, oh, is Sam Howell a first round talent because
what round did Sam Howell get drafted in? I don't even remember. Fifth. Okay.
Fifth. Yeah. No, I don't think he'll drop as far as fifth because obviously he played
right, but I didn't even remember where Michigan he was drafted.
In the national championship, but like I could see him, this hype around him right now because Sam Howell was first round talent, like which he's played quite well in the NFL compared to the rest of that draft class as well. Like that draft class with Will Levis and
do they keep him or do they draft somebody?
They draft someone straight away. Like
depends on who the head coach is, right? And the new GM.
They're gonna just restart everything in Washington this year, just completely destroy everything and build it back up again.
That's why it makes me wonder, does the new GM come in and go, we have so many fucking holes. Let's trade this number 2 pick away, get a ton of draft picks, and worry about a quarterback later.
But the weird thing about the Commanders is, do they have that many holes? Like how? Like I know they've got an awful record. Yeah, they've destroyed themselves by giving away both Sweat and Young for picks. But okay,
and if you're Terry McClellan, don't you want McClellan? Don't you want the fuck out of there now?
Yeah, Terry McLaurin. Yeah, must want to go. But look, they've caused a few teams some challenges this year. Like Sam Howell kind of fell off a cliff. The offensive line is okay. I think most of their sack totals are because Sam Howell held onto the ball too long. So like the Commanders are okay. Their GM sounds like they kind of their new owner, sounds like a good pick for them. He's from like an investment group. He's worth like 8-point-something billion, and he's not even 60 yet, and is worth that amount of money. But he also owns the 76ers and the Long Island something, maybe.
Josh Harris. Like that. I couldn't remember his name. I had to look it up. Yeah, Josh Harris.
Yeah. He owns those franchises, so he clearly knows what he's doing. If I'm them, I'm taking a new quarterback at the top of the draft there.
Yeah, I'm just saying I don't disagree with you. You never know when those GMs are going to come in and go, fuck it, we need way too much. Last thing before I ask you who you want the Cowboys to take in the draft and are way too early talk about the draft. With the Commanders, if they fire everybody, Eric Bieniemy and the Chiefs should get reunited.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see if Eric Bieniemy becomes the head coach in Washington, but too much stuff, and their offense hasn't looked good enough.
Yeah, they haven't looked good enough to deal with any of the other bullshit, and that's the argument.
Considering the Washington Commanders turning a whole new page, new name, new owner, new coaches, don't want to bring up the shit with Eric Bieniemy either. Like all of that, I think Eric Bieniemy and the Chiefs do then get reunited. I think the Chiefs maybe miss his. Like, would those wide receivers drop as many catches if Eric Bieniemy was going to scream at them when they got off the line?
Is he in Andy? Because Andy Reid always says that my offensive coordinator calls the calls, but I have 100% veto power, right?
Yeah. So, yeah. That's nice.
Maybe he should be vetoing more of Matt Nagy's calls.
Yeah, in favor of running the fucking football because your wide receivers keep on dropping it and it's frustrating.
You made a good point
Mahomes.
On our private chat that you did not make today. Pacheco and Cook in the same backfield would be fucking insane.
Yeah, Pacheco and Cook would be a perfect foil for each other. It means that your wide receiver problem is negated because that good offensive line that you've assembled, you give them more running time, which then gives you more play action, which then gives you more open wide receivers for Pat Mahomes to hit.
And you can
gives
play
Travis
them both.
Kelce more space.
You can play them both at the same time because they both can play the slot.
Yeah, like Pacheco is one of my favorite running backs in the NFL. I mean, he was one of my favorite guys coming into the league.
The Chiefs, I keep waiting for the Chiefs to just get it.
No, I think they forget who they need to be now. Like the Chiefs, for me, I think the Chiefs need to realize that they're a defense and run game team this year. Like that's what I think they need to realize. But they keep on trying to pass for 350 yards, and that's just not the way that they're going to win this year.
I agree. I wouldn't be shocked if they won a playoff game or two, but I don't think they're going to the Super Bowl.
No, I think if they just get their identity sorted, then they should be fine because they have a good run game and a good defense, which is what you need in the playoffs. And then obviously when you have Pat Mahomes coming off like some play action with a decent defense and a really good run game with Travis Kelce in that system, you're like, okay, that takes a lot of the pressure off. A few drops in a game doesn't really matter as much. And also the frustration. And that Patrick Mahomes looks like to me that he feels like he needs to do more, but he can't do more if the wide receivers are just dropping the ball. Him doing more is going to lead to interceptions. What he should be doing is relying on now his run game and his defense. Just play the positional ball and see where you get from that.
All right, man. Get Dalvin Cook. Who or even what position in the draft, no matter where you're at, do you want to see your Cowboys draft in the upcoming draft?
I want Michael Holt Jr., defensive tackle from Ohio State.
Well, fuck, there you go. You even knew who you wanted. All right. I wasn't going to put your feet to the fire that much yet.
I don't know whether he falls that far. D tackles do tend to kind of drop behind defensive ends, and with the amount of quarterbacks and wide receivers in this draft and the amount of offense that's needed at the top, maybe we'll grab him. Mazi Smith gets pushed off the ball too easily in the run game for me. Odigizua, defensive tackle, is great in the pass game, but again, a bit soft in the run. And Jonathan Hankins is injured and old. So let's get another D tackle in there, just somebody to stop the run. Because everywhere else is fine. Maybe another wide receiver if somebody falls to us, but I'm happy with just a D tackle.
Well, and then you could take those. You can get wide receivers now later in the draft. So yeah, I get where you're coming from. All right.
Yeah.
We stayed on longer than probably both of us thought we would.
Yeah. Good talk.
Yeah. we had a little skirmish to start the show, and then there it went.
Slow on.
That's about as far as you and I argue, though. Like
we then started apologizing for interrupting each other as we were going through it because we realized where we were going. So we're not like the shouty shows, guys. It's not where we are.
And I swear the only thing we ever argue about on the show anymore is the Eagles. So you would fucking think I was an Eagles fan the way this shit goes.
We argue about everything in very fair ways of just playing devil's advocate with each other's points until it comes to the Eagles, where like either I'm just so blinded by hatred or we just see the game in totally a different way to each other. It gets that way.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we'll be back probably Friday, go through all the games for you, get you some betting lines. Week 18 is always, well, the last week of the NFL season is always wild to pick games anyway. But by that time, we'll have a better idea of who's actually not playing too.
Yeah, don't bet on week 18, guys, unless you're really sure.
Yeah, there's a couple games that are important that everybody's going to play. That's different. But when teams start sitting players, it starts to get weird.
Yeah, like the Dolphins-Bills game, that's going to be everybody playing. The AFC South
playing.
Yeah. All right. Okay, that makes a big difference. The AFC South games, everybody will be playing in those. Like
they just want to rest Flacco 1 week before the playoffs. I got no problem with that.
Yeah, that's fair. The Cowboys and Eagles, they'll probably both play their full teams just to get some confidence. If I was the Eagles, I'd rest players personally. I'd definitely rest Hurts.
Yeah, but they have to almost play because the NFL sets it up that way, because if you guys lose and they win, they move up and win the division.
Yeah, I know they have to. I know they have to play everybody. I know they have to. If it was me, I'd go, oh, okay, let's see. Like,
I don't
let's
think
see what
either
happens in the Cowboys.
I don't think either will happen, but I think there's a bigger chance that the Commanders upset the Cowboys than the Giants upsetting the Eagles. But I don't think either will happen, only because I feel like the Commanders have more talent on their team than the Giants. But I don't think that'll happen anyway. But
I also think it would be the most Cowboys thing to do to lose the game. That, like, after being rewarded the win against the Lions, it would be the most Cowboys thing to fuck it up at the end.
If the Eagles come out and don't win this game, they are fucking dead in the playoffs. But I don't think that's how that'll happen.
I honestly, I would, if I was the Eagles, I'd think about resting players, just because I agree with you that their main problem, like, although I do think they have a coaching problem, I think their main problem throughout the season is fatigue.
Do you play Lamar?
So I would stop them.
Because if you don't, do you play Lamar? Because if you don't, that means he sat for almost 3 weeks before he plays his next game.
I play Lamar. If I'm the Ravens, I play maybe a half. See where we are.
Yeah, just because it's the same thing with Purdy, though. Like, do you play him? Do you rest him? Do you rest Debo? Do you play him? Like, it's.
I don't play. If I'm the 49ers, I don't play because of the injury bug that the 49ers normally have. And it also means, and this is more semantics and all of that kind of stuff and spin, if Purdy loses when McCaffrey's out, Purdy is yet to win a game where McCaffrey has been out. So maybe it would be nice if you're going to sit any of them, sit all of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I would personally, they're already sitting McCaffrey. I would sit Purdy. I would sit Kittle. I would sit Ayuk, and I would sit Debo. And Bosa.
And Trent Williams as well. I'd sit Trent Williams as well. But
if I'm the 49ers, maybe even Fred Warner too.
Yeah. Just rest them all. If I'm the 49ers,
you only got so many guys on a team, though. You know what I mean? You only got so many guys on a team, so some people have to play. But
yeah, you've got a nice big practice squad waiting of guys who want to prove themselves as well, though. But
yeah,
Sam Darnold you get to see what you've got in Sam Darnold for when one of your quarterbacks get injured in the playoffs, because that's always what happens to the 49ers.
I want to see Sam Darnold play on that team fully loaded one time.
Yeah, I know. I would love to see Sam Darnold play with like McCaffrey and everybody. I would just be so interested by that.
Well, because we always use that. Would they be better with Shanahan? Like, we always use that. So
let's see. We've gone on for another. We said bye about 10 minutes ago, and we've gone on for another 10 minutes.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Make sure you check out all the other shows. Please hit that like and subscribe. One world, one love. Deuces.
Cheerio.